Hi, everybody. My name is Devin. I'm a librarian at the Worcester Public Library, and today I am here with author Melissa Caruso. It's nice to see you again, Melissa.
It's great to be back.
So Melissa is going to be doing a program for us later this week. She's the author of several fantasy novels, including the Swords and Fire trilogy, which begins with the Gimel Morningstar Award shortlisted title, The Tethered Mage from 2017. So you have plenty of time to read it. If you haven't read it yet, you should. And her new Rooks and Ruin trilogy, which begins with the Obsidian Tower. This one just came out this summer. So I know the Obsidian Tower in the Rooks and Ruins trilogy takes place in what's considered to be a lesser known part of the world from the first trilogy that you wrote. So I was curious if in writing the first book in the Rooks and Ruins trilogy, was it hard to sort of change settings like that?
It was actually really fun because as a fantasy author, world building is one of my favorite parts of writing fantasy in particular. So getting to go into an area of the world that I hadn't explored as deeply was a lot of fun, and particularly because in the first trilogy, the country that the Obsidian Tower takes place in is seen as kind of this spooky, creepy place that the villain is from. And then I got to write from the perspective of a character who'd been raised there and sort of take all the assumptions that the main character of the first series had made and kind of turn them inside out. And that was a lot of fun to get to do.
Yeah, that sounds really great. I admit that I haven't started the Obsidian Tower yet. I plan to. But when I do, is there any chance I'll get news or maybe get a mention of any of my favorite characters from your previous series?
Uh, there are some little kind of Easter eggs in there. None of the characters from the first series actually appear in the new one. It takes place 150 years later, so most of them are not around anymore. There might be some exceptions, but suffice to say that I think that there's a few references that people who have read it will catch, but I didn't want them to be taking any kind of significant role in it because I felt like then the book would kind of try to morph to be about them because I like writing about them and it would be hard to resist that temptation. And I really wanted this new series to be able to stand on its own and be read in either order, and that you don't have to read the first one to read this.
Oh, that's a good idea. So he doesn't have to be sequential. That's awesome. So I also saw online recently that the audio version of Obsidian Tower just came out, and I'm super excited because I'm a huge audiobook person. I listen to them while I'm doing chores and I forget that I'm doing chores. So I was wondering, do you have a preferred book format that you really enjoy?
It's actually kind of interesting. So for the vast majority of my life, I've really been a print reader in that because I just love books as physical artifacts. I mean, they're pretty, they smell good, they feel good in your hands, like they're very satisfying as a wonderful object to just have and spend time with. I'm actually a bit hard of hearing, and so I had thought for ages that audiobooks weren't for me and couldn't be for me, even though I loved the idea of, as you say, doing chores and being able to read a book while I'm folding laundry or something. But just this year in June, I got hearing aids for the first time. And they're not only are they just a wonderful life-changing device, but these days they're really cool and they're Bluetooth enabled. So I always have high quality Bluetooth headphones in, and I've just started listening to audiobooks with them, and I love it. I just finished reading my very, very first audiobook, which was Gideon the Ninth, which I absolutely loved. And it's just seems like it's going to be life changing, and I'm really excited.
Oh, that's awesome. I'm glad you like audiobooks too. You can help me promote them. A lot of people think, oh, audiobooks aren't for me. So I'm glad to have another person on the audiobook wagon.
They're a great way to make time for reading in a life where you have no time for reading.
Exactly. Okay, so the workshop that you're going to be doing for us on Saturday is all about getting your work published. What was one of the more frustrating things that you encountered when you were first trying to get published?
So nobody likes rejections, but the one thing that I think was even more frustrating than rejections was when I would get no response at all, which happens, unfortunately, in the publishing world. And it's a little different. Sometimes an agent or an editor will say, okay, if you haven't in general, if you don't hear back from me in a month, that means no. But then other times they won't, and you just kind of wait forever, not knowing if your work has been accepted or rejected. And that's very hard because you can't sort of move on emotionally from that the way you can from a rejection.
That does sound very frustrating. Another thing you're going to mention in your workshop is how to make a pitch for your book. I was wondering if you could describe that process a little bit for our viewers.
Yeah, so basically, agents and editors just don't have enough time in their day to read every book that's submitted to them. So the way that they can tell, okay, am I interested enough to read this and see more is through a pitch. And often this is through a query letter, which is a one-page letter that basically says, hey, here's who I am, here's what my book is about. And then other times it might be something really short, like there'll be Twitter pitch events where you have to pitch your book in just one tweet. Which is an incredibly short amount of time to try and get across what's exciting about your book and what it's about. So it's they can be very hard to craft. And the goal with them is to really stand out from every other book that they're reading a little pitch for. A great example, I have the perfect story for this. My agent, this isn't about my book, this is about a different book. My agent posted a video actually at one point. She reads the query letters she receives while she's on the treadmill, trying to fit it into her day. And she posted a video of herself going through all her queries for one day on her little e-reader on her treadmill. And she got to one that was so good, it made her stop. And she almost fell off the treadmill. You see her almost literally fall off the treadmill on video because she was so amazed by this query. And that book is just releasing today. Literally today, that book comes out, No Effect Gloss by Essa Hansen, coincidentally. So, and that's the goal that you're striving for, is to have that be your story.
Wow, that's amazing. Wow. So I know we're living in a strange time right now with COVID. Has that changed your daily writing routine or how you communicate with your publisher? Sorry, my table's shaking. My cat jumped up.
They're always helpful.
Yes.
So it's certainly, it hasn't really changed how I communicate with my publisher, but it has very much changed my routine. Because I used to only write when my husband was at work and my kids were at school and I had the house to myself and it was quiet. And now that's not a thing anymore. The kids do school from home. My husband works from home, and there is absolutely no peace at any point in the day. So it's been very hard to try and, normally I have to kind of baby my creative process and build little walls around it. And that's just impossible. There's always someone who needs help with something. It's never quiet. There's not a lot of private places in the house. And it's definitely taken a lot of adjusting to.
Yeah, for everybody. Just because I enjoy your books, I'm curious what you're reading right now, or if you've read anything really good aside from that Gideon book you mentioned.
Well, the audiobook I just started is the sequel, Harrow the Ninth, which I just had to roll right into after reading Gideon the Ninth, especially after how it ended, no spoilers. But anyway, I actually just finished reading a book it's not out for a while, but I had the pleasure of reading it early, which was amazing, called The Mask of Mirrors by M.A. Carrick. And it's a fantasy novel. It's about this con artist who is pretending to be a noble to try and get accepted into this noble family, but she just falls straight into the middle of this big magical conspiracy. And the world building is incredible. The characters are great. And I looked, when I looked at it, it was this big chunky book. I thought I was going to have trouble fitting into my day, but it did not feel chunky. I just whipped right through it. Just an incredible book. Highly recommend.
Oh, that's great. And I like that the con artist is female. I was expecting you to say it was a guy. So I think that makes it even more interesting.
Yeah.
So if you've enjoyed this conversation with Melissa as much as I have, make sure that you sign up for her upcoming program this Saturday, November 21st at 2:30 to 3:30 in the afternoon. And the focus is getting published. So you've written a book and you want to publish it. Now what? This workshop walks you through the publishing process, from querying literary agents to what happens after the book deal. Learn about pros and cons of self versus traditional publishing, how to write a great pitch, common pitfalls to avoid, and overcoming rejections. Bring all of your publishing questions for this Q&A with Melissa Caruso. Thanks so much, Melissa, and we hope to see you there on Saturday.
Thank you.